Welcome back for another one on the $500 jet ski, the 94 stinking large turd, the SLT 750. I got new cases for it. The crank was shot. I got top bottom cases, and I got a nice used crank. I pray that it's indexed, or that it indexes. It should. It doesn't look like it's had any issues. But first things first, guys, pull all your screws out of this case, bottom half. We got to clean this really good. You want to make sure this case is extremely clean. So all your little grooves here, any sealer that could be left in there from the old gaskets, everything. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to spray it with some parts clean. Then I'm going to take compressed air, I'm going to blow everything out, make sure all my sealing surfaces are really smooth. You can see there's little pieces of gasket laying around. On both sides you're going to want to do this, guys. And then we'll get the crank up here, and I'll show you how I pre-oil the crank and get ready to drop it in. Some really great info I found online as I was doing a little research. Your vacuum line here in your case, make sure that's nice and cleaned out, no gunk, no debris inside of it. Really good tip. Like I said, these screws for the block drain, make sure all the crap's blowing out of them. You want this case really clean, like I said earlier. So I'll finish getting it cleaned up, both the top and the bottom. We'll get the crank up here. Take yourself a pick and these little bolt holes that hold your case together, and get all that old sealer out of there and around your pins. You want to pick all that stuff out of there. Just be careful not to gouge up the aluminum on your case. Take your time, you know, you're going to spend some time doing this. It's not a 5-minute job, but it'll be well worth it when it's done right. Alright, it's the second day working on this. What I'm going to do to drop the crank in is I'm going to take 2 cylinders and I'm just going to put 2 bolts on them, just so the rods have somewhere to go when they lay down in the case, or when I lay the crank in. So I cleaned up the gasket on the bottom of these cylinders. There we go. You can see I got them really nice and clean. We're going to hone them too. I'll do a separate video on the top end. We're going to slip these on. Let me see what's going on with this one. Let me double check everything here. Shouldn't be going on that tight. There it goes. I might have just had sealer in there. I'm going to put 2 nuts here, 2 nuts here. Then we'll flip this assembly over and I'll show you how to get the crank in. We got the case standing up, the top side of it with the jugs. And now we're going to dry fit this crank before I put the new seals and stuff on. I already cleaned everything really nice. Like I told you guys, cleanliness is going to be key on this. So we're just going to set this crank in just to see how everything lines up. And I'll show you how to put the new seals on and all that good stuff, guys. Now on your bearings, you're going to have these pins right here. These pins are going to lay down in here. Got to make sure they're lined up on every single one. Don't worry, we're not putting this crank in yet. I'm just test fitting everything. You can see how they lay down. Just like that. This one's got a seal here, or a ring, a metal ring. I'll show you in a minute. So I just wanted to see how it's going to lay in there before I start putting the sealer, and I'll show you what sealer I use and all that. Now on your crank, when you spin these bearings, since this is a used crank, if they're loud, like shh, they're bad. I spun all these. They are going to have a tiny bit of side-to-side play. That's normal. This one's it sounds like it's loud, but it's not. It was just rubbing the seal. So all the bearings are good. Next step, get your seals off. They're going to be stacked. This is going to be the outside, then this is what's going to face the inside of the crank. So they're going to be like this, put together. And then you're going to have this metal piece right here on your crank. Make sure that's nice and smooth. There is a little O-ring right here. Lube it up a little bit. That O-ring, if you replace it, lube it up. I got to see what I got in my seal kit. So we'll set this back on for now. And on the other side, This side of the seal is going to go towards your crankshaft like this. Now, when you put these seals on, you're going to want to take a tiny bit of grease with a little brush and just brush a little bit of grease around this seal. So on startup, it doesn't tear up this brand new seal and start leaking on you. Let me get the new seals opened up. I'll put them on this crank. I have read some things online. It's not in the Polaris service manual about putting grease around here between these two. My opinion is I'm not going to. Some people might scald me on it. Some people might agree with me on it. Guess a little grease wouldn't hurt you. And then I'm going to oil up these bearings, and I'll show you how we're going to do that in a minute. And I'll put the seals on, and let's drop this crank in. For the new crank seals, like I said, I'm going to take a brush. I'm just using normal grease. There's certain Polaris grease they want you to use. I really haven't found many guys that say you can't just use a normal grease. So I'm going to put a thin layer around this seal on both sides. Or well, I should say on both ends of the crank, the PTO and the mag side. And this is just for when it starts up so it doesn't tear the seal up. And then you get a vacuum leak in your crankcase, and damn sure don't want that. So just work a little in there. You can, if you're worried about this spring coming off, old mechanic's trick is to put grease around it. I think it'll stay on just fine. So I'm going to try to do it without, hopefully. So there's that side. And those are nice and tight fitting on there too. So that'll be really nice. Now this side, like I said, you got the stack seals. So let me get these lubed up. I don't think I'm going to replace this O-ring here. In the kit, it didn't. I didn't see one in the kit. I got Window Rosa gasket kit, and honestly this O-ring's in really good shape. I don't see any rips or tears or indications of wear. Still seals nice. So we're gonna go with it, guys. Famous last words before it blows up. Alright, so same procedure on these. Grease up your edges where she meets your crank on both seals. I got these rags now. I'm trying to do this as clean as possible. It's not the most ideal work situation here. I'm looking to pick up another big workbench that I can have 100% cleaned off, just motor only on it. But like everything else in life, takes money, takes time. I ain't got much either. So now these seals are going to go together like this, and they're going to stick on here. Gonna have to work them on a little bit. Whip that grease off. And let me go get the torque specs and the sequence printed out, and we'll drop this crank in. We're gonna use on here 1211 for the sealer. See a nice little kit. You're gonna want to do a real thin layer. Don't worry, I'll show you. You can't make it too thick. It won't torque right. I should mention also, throw these little seals out there, I'm going to put a little grease down in the rods where the rod bearing goes. Just like a quarter or half a pump. Like I said, just mainly this is for initial startup. You don't want to blow nothing up just yet. You're going to blow it up when you're pushing it to the limit. That's when you want to blow it up, when you're having fun. Alright, down in here where your crank seals ride, and where that metal tab on the crank bearing, you're going to want to put a little bead of this 1211 on all these to lock those seals in place. I'll show you what it looks like after I do my small bead. I have my thin bead of 1211 in there. What I had to do is wipe it out a little bit. Make sure it seats down in there. You can see it is sealed. I know you see a little gap here. It'll seat in there. Make sure all the 1211's wiped off where your bearing rides. Where your bearing is going to seat, or else your case is not going to torque right. Get all that crap out of there. Make sure you don't plug any of these oil holes. Okay, let's drop this crank in. Been waiting to do this for a while. Alright. This heavy son of a bee Get it down in there. Remember the guide pins I told you about earlier, guys? For your bearings. Make sure your seals are lined up. Just like that. Now we're going to go back through here. We're going to line up our pins for our bearings. I kind of rotated them so they were in the middle before I dropped this crank in. Made it a little easier on myself. Now I'll just push down into place. You might have to gently take a little weight off the crank. Might have to lift up on it a little bit. Yeah, you're gonna have to be able to put them pins down. Just lift up on it easily. Make sure when you drop it back down, everything's into position. See, I cut my damn thumb. Okay, now that's the top half of the case. Now we got to do the bottom half. When we get this all done, I'll show you how we're going to put the bead of 1211 around the seals. So I just want to go over everything real quick. Let me shut the camera off. I'll show you we're going to put a bead of 1211 on here. And then I'll show you how we put the bottom of the case on. For your bottom case halves, it's going to be the same thing with the 1211. Put a bead where your seals go. And I'll show you once we get that all ready to go. I'll show you the torque specs. Here you can see I got the 1211. Nice thin bead all the way around that crankcase. That should seal it up nice and good. Okay, you can see I got a little bead of 1211 in there. A little bit in there. Alright, let's put the case half on. Hopefully this goes on nice and easy. I did want to let you guys know I cleaned all these sealing surfaces after I was done cleaning them. Took some carb cleaner. Clean them really nice. You want that gasket maker to really stick. Alright, let's get this damn thing together. Put a little more 1211 in here. Just on this one little spot here. Really want to make sure those seals stay in place, guys. Okay. Now the 1211 is just on the top side of the case. So we got to line up this bottom side. Grab a hold of it. You don't want to drop it. Slowly set it down on there. The pin should line up. And the sealer should start to squeeze out of the crankcase. If you got enough sealer in there, which I hope we did. And now we'll start getting our bolts in. I'll show you guys. You can go online and print this off. Torque spec for the 6mm is going to be 72 inch-pounds. 8mm is going to be 16 foot-pounds, and the 10mm is going to be 26 foot-pounds. And it'll give you your torque specs, or your sequence, your pattern, 1, 2, 3, and then you can print this online. I know my camera probably won't zoom in and show you guys. Alright, let me get this case torqued down before the sealer starts to set. On your crankcase bolts, I cleaned them all. I got all the old crap off these, all the old sealer, all the old Loctite. Now what you're going to want to use is blue Loctite, medium strength. Put some on there. Pay attention to your bolt length. Shorter ones are going to drop down on the PTO side. Longer ones are going to run on the mag side. Don't want to screw that up. Like I said, blue Loctite. And let me get the rest of these all in. There's quite a few bolts here, guys. I ultrasonic cleaned them all. Cleaned everything up really nice. So yep, and we'll torque them down. I'll pop the camera back on when we're torquing. So for all these 8mm bolts, which are going to be all these, you're going to be going 16 foot-pounds. For your two bigger ones on the ends, it looks like you're going to be going 26. And then your one real small one on the other side of the crankcase over here, you can go your 72 inch-pounds. So let's start clicking these. There's a lot of bolts. As I'm torquing these, as I do each one, I'm just going to put a yellow dot on them so I know. Right now I'm doing the 16 foot-pounders. I got a nice digital Craftsman torque wrench. So let me keep going. There's no reason to bore you guys on the video. I'll be following the service manual here. One thing I want to mention as I'm tightening these, the service manual does call for you to rotate the crank as you're torquing, going through your torques on your bolts to make sure that that crank stays rotating real nice, no binding. So make sure you're just rotating it a little bit, you know, as you do it, you know, torque your bolt, and just make sure it's rotating nicely after you're torquing them down. After I go through, or after I went through and torqued all these, what I like to do is just double check everything. I just got a Craftsman digital torque wrench. It's got the noisemaker on it. These are 26 foot-pounds on these big ones. The other ones were 16, and that little one over there. Show you everything's nice. I double checked these. You can see I put yellow dots on them as I torque them, so I know where I'm at in the sequence. Kept, you know, rotating the crank, every bolt. Really nice. Let me turn it around for you guys. Starting to get there, guys. I'm getting excited now. This one's 72 inch-pounds. I got a little 1/4 inch torque wrench here. Show you in a minute. This is the last one right here, guys. Little lightweight one. There we go. That's it. Crank's in. Now let me show you one more spot where I want you guys to put the 1211 on these cases. Or where I like to do it. Let me get this put up, I'll show you in a second. On both these end seals, guys, these crank end seals, I like to take and put a little bead of 1211 around the outside of these to make sure that you're airtight and sealed up. And I'll wipe it off real nice. And I'll do the same thing with the other side. You really want to make sure you're sealed up good. Fortunately, I might have to redo this one. I probably will redo this one. I'll lay the motor down the other way. It'll be a little bit easier for me. But that shows you guys. You guys get the drift. So gotta go see what's going on outside the speed shop. Sounds like somebody's banging the hell out of something. Who knows? I'd be scared to look. Probably my truck. Alright guys, you can see on the mag side I put a bead of that 1211 too right around this crank seal. Wiped it off with my finger. You can see it packed in there real nice and tight. That's going to wrap up this video. On the next video we're going to start getting the top end on this. We got to get the jet ski hull fixed. We got a lot of work to do. So thanks for watching. Hit subscribe and let's get this project done.